Ecuadorian presidential candidate Luisa Gonzalez described the result obtained in the general elections as a triumph as she heads to a runoff in which she will face current President Daniel Noboa. Iranian citizens celebrate the 46th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution by urging to strengthen resistance and not to surrender to the United States. And in the United States, President Donald Trump announced the imposition of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. In Ecuador, the presidential candidate for the Citizen Revolution, Luisa Gonzalez, described as a triumph the result obtained in the general elections, whose preliminary vote counting grants her advancement to the runoff and to be measured against the contender Daniel Noboa. On an interview to a local media, Luisa Gonzalez assured that she, alongside her team, had always planned to go to the second round. The nominee of the Citizen Revolution described as a battle of the David against Goliath, the electoral contest she and Noboa are engaging. Gonzalez emphasized that there are inconsistencies in the tally sheets that should be solved, especially in Guayas, Manabi, and Esmeraldas. Furthermore, she questioned that Noboa has embarked on his path to re-election as acting president, noting that during his period, the state apparatus and state assets were misused to obtain votes. This in context in which the National Electoral Council of Ecuador reported that if the current trend in the vote count continues, presidential candidate Luisa Gonzalez and Daniel Noboa will face each other in a runoff election on April 13th. With over 92% of the votes counted, both candidates will vie for the presidency of the country in April, with current President Daniel Noboa garnering 44.31% of the votes, followed closely by Luisa Gonzalez with 43.83% of the votes. In order to be elected to the Ecuadorian presidency in a single round, a candidate must obtain 50% of the votes plus one, or total 40%, with a difference of 10 points over the second place. Meanwhile, the president of the National Electoral Council, Diana Atamain, stated at the closing of the polls that the day passed normally and with a projected turnout of more than 83%.
It's a general account. This election was held with absolute normality, prevailing order, security, and a peaceful environment. Principles that reaffirm that Ecuadorians trust in our democratic system. Therefore, we congratulate the heavy voter turnout as citizens expressed their will, showcasing civism. From this time on, Ecuadorians must be attentive so that the members of the voting boards initiate the count, which must be public, and delegates of political organizations. National and international observers and the press must accompany the process.
Luisa Gonzalez, presidential candidate of the Citizen Revolution Party, addressed her supporters minutes after the National Council's pronouncement, expressing her gratitude to the Ecuadorian people.
We have broken the historical voting of the Citizen Revolution of the last 10 years. That is to say, we as a political organization that also gathers the feeling of a people that has been forgotten, we have felt that value, that affection, and that hope of the people in the response at the polls. Thanks to the Ecuadorians, thanks to my people, thanks to my homeland, thanks to Ecuador, because this triumph is yours.
The Citizen Revolution nominee Luisa Gonzalez condemned the candidate Leonidas Itza for obtaining a significant margin of voters, and she further urged all parties to unite for both their country and peace.
I commend the other candidates who obtained some significant ballots, such as Leonidas Itza, who received an important vote. But I also invite once again, as I did months ago, I urge for unity, we, the ones willing to build up a joint agenda, which will pave us the way for dignity and peace, so much wanted by us. I aspire to stop migration, death, and violence.
The president and candidate for re-election, Daniel Noboa, suspended the event he had planned due to the adverse results. Noboa and his campaign team had prepared for Sunday night an appearance in front of his supporters in a hotel in Quito, but the summon was cancelled. Noboa did not make any statements during the whole electoral day and was only seen when he went to vote very early in the morning. In social networks, they reproached the president's attitude and accused him of lacking character and leadership. Ecuadorian indigenous leader Leonidas Itza denounced on Sunday irregularities regarding the National Electoral Council (CNE) during the presidential election. Itza accused the CNE of being biased and warned of the lack of equality in the electoral process. In addition, he criticized the expenditure of over $130 million by the government of Daniel Noboa in this process. After being interrupted by members of the armed forces, Itza expressed his disagreement with the military disruption and affirmed that the government was influencing the electoral boards. In other informations, in Venezuela, the Bolivarian government informed that 2 planes of the airline Conviasa are heading to Venezuelan territory from the United States in the framework of the plan Back to the Homeland to bring back to the country migrant nationals, and they also ratified their willingness to maintain direct relations of communication, respect, and understanding with the government of President Donald Trump. In the statement issued, the administration of President Nicolás Maduro stated that in the conversation held between the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the government of the United States of America, represented by the special envoy of President Trump, Ambassador Richard Granell, Venezuela always made it clear that any transfer of Venezuelans should be done with absolute respect for their dignity and human rights. Consequently, we made the proposal that we would have Venezuelan planes to search for and transfer the migrants who are returning to their homeland today. It is the irrevocable position of our government to attend the conditions of our migrants and their prerogatives enshrined in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They also went on to emphasize that Venezuela ratifies what was discussed with the Special Envoy Granell, that there is a false and malicious narrative surrounding the issue of the so-called Aragua train, sought by the media and representatives of the Biden administration to criminalize all Venezuelan migrants and stigmatize our country. On the contrary, the majority of migrants are decent and hard-working people. The government of President Nicolás Maduro Moros reiterated its proposals within the framework of the Zero Agenda for a new beginning of relations between both countries. And with this information, let's take a short break. But don't go away, we'll be right back. Welcome back From the South. North of West Bank, Israeli occupation forces have intensified their operations in the Nur Shams refugee camp east of Tulkarem, setting up a tight blockade and conducting raids and home searches. This military incursion, which has led to increased tensions in the region, has forced the evacuation of residents and their homes being transformed into military posts. Israeli troops have used live ammunition against civilians. 2 women, one of them pregnant, have reported dead, and several people have being wounded, many of them youngsters. Israeli troops have also damaged infrastructure, homes, and essential services such as water supply, further aggravating the humanitarian situation in the camp. Meanwhile, in the United States, President Donald Trump reiterated his controversial proposal to take control over the Gaza Strip. Several voices rejected the violation of Palestinian sovereignty and ethnic cleansing plans. The U.S. president said that Gaza should be considered a great real estate site and that other Middle Eastern countries could take charge of rebuilding the war-torn enclave. He also described the war-torn territory as a place of demolition, assuring that his administration will be committed to owning it to prevent actions by Hamas. Trump also claimed that the displaced Palestinians prefer not to return to Gaza, sparking outrage from much of the international community.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. As far as us rebuilding it, we may give it to other states in the Middle East to build sections of it. Other people may do it through our auspices, but we're committed to owning it, taking it, and making sure that Hamas doesn't move back. There's nothing to move back into. The place is a demolition site. It'll be, the remainder will be demolished. Everything's demolished. I mean, you can't live in those buildings right now. They're very unsafe.
And in the face of these controversial statements made by U.S. President Donald Trump, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan expressed his rejection of the White House proposals.
Unfortunately, we see that the Israeli administration has more insidious and inhumane plans in mind instead of making the ceasefire permanent. First of all, I would like to say this clearly. The proposals put forward by the new American administration regarding Gaza under the pressure of the Zionist lobby are not worth our attention or discussion.
Erdogan also expressed his rejection of any attempt to force Palestinians from their ancestral lands.
No one has the power to displace the people of Gaza from their eternal homeland that has been around for thousands of years. Palestine, including Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, belongs to the Palestinians. The people of Gaza, who have not left their lands despite all the cruelty, savagery, and attacks of Israel, will continue to stay in Gaza, live in Gaza and protect Gaza.
In Iran, citizens celebrate the 46th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution in that country with the emblematic March of the 22nd of Muharram. The demonstration began in several cities of the country at 9 a.m. local time. On the evening of February 9th, Iranians gathered in Asadi Square, Tehran, where a fireworks ceremony was held to commemorate the beginning of the week of the national holiday. Every February 11th, the Iranian people reaffirmed their loyalty to the ideals of the Islamic Revolution and numerous mass demonstrations expressing their unity and commitment to defense and sovereignty of the nation. We have a second short break coming up, but we'll be right back, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south, and we are now back to Ecuador, where citizens went Sunday to the polls in the first round of the general elections with over 92% of the votes counted. Candidates Luisa Gonzalez and Daniel Noboa will go to a runoff next April 13th. And to know all the latest details on this post-election process that Ecuador is living, we go live now with a special envoy in the country, Jorge Gestoso. Welcome, Jorge. How are you, and what can you share with us?
Thank you very much. There's definitely no time to waste running for the runoff of, talking about April 13th. That means 2 months from now, after the first round that give a technical tie between the candidates, President Daniel Noboa and the challenger Luisa Gonzalez. Mostly here we're talking about two individuals, two candidates that ended up their voting with 44% of the votes. Just 0.5% of difference between one and the other, and some votes are still being studied to be counted. So there's not really definite result, but the strategies in each of campaigns have already started And the key issue here is the number 3. We're talking about Leonidas Issa, the candidate of the Pachakutik political party that represents the indigenous population, very important party and very important segment of the population of Ecuador. Leonidas Issa got 5.6 percentage of the votes, and that 5.6% of the vote could be key to reach the 50% plus 1 of the votes in order to reach the majority. Well, it seems that in a way, the progressive or the leftist candidate, Luisa Gonzalez, has already in the past, in the previous months, established a relationship with Pachakutik. So there is a certain hope that that sort of political agreement not to fight against each other that they supposedly did in order to reach this first round is going to be working in favor of Luisa Gonzalez. So far, we know that the candidate itself, Leonidas Issa, has already mentioned that he will not ask his followers to follow Luisa Gonzalez, but he mentioned that he will leave to his party make that recommendation. From the end of for the other side of the political spectrum, we're talking about the President Daniel Noboa, radio silence. Since yesterday, when he got the information that he was spreading the idea that he was going to win with 51% of the vote, things went sour, went north, and he disappeared. He was supposed to give a speech, a press conference immediately after the results. He disappeared this morning. He was not still in the radar, and the political party that he belongs to, the ADN, assessed the results of last night as definitely a defeat. He was completely convinced that he was going to win this election in this past weekend with 51% at least. Well, things send a message, the citizenship send a message very, very powerful that having all the advantages that he had, one of the richest person of this country, his father is the richest, and using the government and the state in his favor didn't work as he wanted to. We go back to you now.
Thank you. Thank you, Gestoso, for all the first-hand information. We will keep in contact for sure. And we are going now to the United States, where President Donald Trump announced the imposition of 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports starting this Monday, February 10th. President Trump added that he will announce Tuesday or Wednesday the so-called reciprocal tariffs, which means that the United States will impose import tariffs on products in cases where another country has imposed tariffs on U.S. goods. The U.S. president had already imposed tariffs of 15% on steel and 10% on aluminum during his first term, although he later granted duty-free quotas to allied countries and blocs, including Canada, Mexico, and Brazil. According to experts, the measure announced by Trump threatened to unleash trade wars with the entire world. And in response to the coercive U.S. policies, the Chinese government levied tariffs on Washington, which affect some $14 billion worth of goods. Chinese taxes that range from 10 to 15% are targeting U.S. exports of liquefied natural gas, coal, crude oil, and agricultural machinery, as well as some automotive products. The Chinese embassy to Washington confirmed the measure has been enforced as of Sunday, February 9th. Romanian President Klaus Iohannis announced his resignation amid pressure on him to leave office after a court last year cancelled the country's presidential election.
In order to spare Romania and the Romanian citizens from this crisis, from this useless and negative development, I resign from the office of President of Romania. I will leave office the day after tomorrow, February 12th.
God bless Romania.
Dumnezeu să binecuvânteze România.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. I'm Alejandra Garcia for Telesur English. Thank you for watching.